All right, everyone, welcome to episode 9 of the Existential Stoic podcast. This is a great one for this time of year. How to survive the holidays with family or without family.
Hey, yeah,
But
either.
how to survive the holidays. This is a stressful time of year for everybody.
It really is. It is a stressful time of year.
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at how to get through it the best that you can. I'm Randy. This is Danny.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Danny. And so today, how to survive the holidays. We're less than a week away from Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving, basically the moment it's over,
It's
the
all
rush
Christmas.
towards Christmas starts.
The rush towards Christmas starts like 3 months ago. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like basically as soon as summer ended.
Yeah.
But you know what? I find for myself that the holidays, yeah, sure, they're stressful, but I end up getting even more depressed like after Christmas is over. Because it seems like during the fall, there's always something. There's like the end of summer, then there's Halloween, then there's Thanksgiving, then there's Christmas, and then there's just nothing but bitterly cold temperature for months.
You know what's interesting? I actually had heard that before that, and I don't remember where this is from, this was a while ago, but I had heard that the placement, the timing of the holidays did in part have to do with that it helped people get through difficult times of the year because, you have something to look forward to. And it kind of makes sense, right? You have all this stuff that breaks up the season, so you're not thinking about, but you're right, January hits and that's pretty much it. You're in the new year, you have a couple months.
Plus football ends.
Yeah.
And we need a few holidays in the winter time to kind of...
And it's brutal too, because it's like the coldest time of year, it gets...
Blue Monday in January.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Well,
the shortest day of the year is the solstice. That's in December, but then, yeah.
So 2 minutes in and we're already off topic.
We are. I know. It does not take long. Man, it is so easy
Right.
to get sidetracked and just, whatever. Okay, so should we start with, I guess I have a question for you, though, How do you think of the holidays now? And the reason why I guess I asked this, not necessarily now in the sense of it's 2020, COVID and all that, we'll talk about that. But I mean, like...
Trying times.
Yeah, those trying times, these uncertain times. We'll absolutely talk about that, because why wouldn't we? But, I was thinking, like, earlier today I was thinking about this, because I was thinking about the holidays. And, when you're younger, like, when I was young, I remember, the holidays are kind of fun because, you don't have any responsibilities. You're just kind of like, you go with the flow, you get drug around. Sometimes you might not want to go to this person's house or that person's house.
But you always show up there, you get presents.
Yeah, you show up, you basically get stuff
Everybody's
constantly.
excited to see you.
Good food, everybody pays attention to you. You're given freedom to kind of like run around and stuff. You see your cousins or whatever and friends. And like, that side of it's very, there's not a lot of stress or anything.
The holidays were definitely not made for adults.
No, right? They weren't. I mean, I guess that's my point, right? Like, how do you feel about the holidays now? How do you, when you think of the holidays, what do you think, I guess, personally?
Oh my gosh, I don't even look forward to them. Like, I kind of get into a routine. I'm very focused on the things that I want to accomplish in life and the things that I want to do. And so, like, literally every day is the same. Because if I'm not working at my profession, I'm working building businesses. And if I'm not doing that, I'm working on self-development. And so, like, no matter what holiday it is, 4th of July, Christmas, it doesn't matter. It's just the same thing. Everybody's off celebrating for something that'll be over, and I don't even really participate that much in them. But it's definitely, holidays as an adult are definitely not the same as they were as a child. I think my childhood holidays were very similar to yours.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? And I think you made a good point, though. As an adult, right, we have our own things going on. We have our own stresses, our own worries. So, like, and the reality of the situation is the holiday is another day. So, whatever you do with it, I mean, it's nice to give yourself a break, to enjoy that time, but like, yeah, whatever you do with it is what you do with it. I mean, personally, myself, like, I stopped going to big family events and stuff and big family get-togethers because, frankly, they weren't, there wasn't anything there for me anymore, I guess you could say, whether you call it estrangement or whatever, I don't know, call it whatever you want, but I made this decision, and I think it was better for me to make that decision.
It could be more stressful for you to go to it. It could worsen your time of year to actually show up there.
Oh, yeah, and I remember, too, and I'm sure a lot of people have gone through this that are listening, right? And this happened to me in the past many times. You meet somebody, you're dating somebody, and you're trying to do 2 Thanksgivings or 2 Christmases, or, when my parents first got divorced, right? You're trying to do 2 holidays every holiday, and it's like, kind of real. It's like my parents got better at it relatively quickly, where we just separated the days or did different days. But like, it's kind of ridiculous because you don't really enjoy any of your time.
Yeah.
You're so worried about getting to the next place, you're not really there and present.
Yeah, I've been having fun recently looking up the etymology of words, kind of where they came from.
Oh, that is fun, isn't it?
Yeah, like what would this segment of year like be before Columbus or before Christ? Like 2,000 years ago, from November to December to January, what would that have been like? Because there wasn't Thanksgiving, there wasn't Christmas. So what?
Well, there wasn't Thanksgiving, and there wasn't. I don't know. Do you know Halloween? Do you know when that started? 'Cause that's. I don't know if that's
the Salem witch trials. I'm pretty sure.
Is it? Yeah, that makes sense. No, in all seriousness, Christmas is kind of a mish together of a pagan holiday, though.
Is it?
Saturnalia, I believe it was called, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can look it up. I'm pretty sure though. So that's common though, right? Because Christianity and Rome, right? The Romans had a lot of those holidays already. You kind of mesh things together. It makes sense. When the Romans moved in, they just kind of told people to follow their gods, but kind of keep doing the same thing. So you get a lot of blending, I guess, with the holidays. So I think they did have something this time of year. It wasn't like Christmas, but it wasn't what we celebrate, but it was something similar, right? To kind of lighten that time of year.
Celebrate the New Year. And there's also the New Year.
Yeah.
See, as an adult, I feel like there's so much more responsibility for the holidays. Like, in addition to just doing all the stuff and all the responsibilities you have normally, like work and life and just doing your laundry and doing the dishes and making your bed every morning.
Paying your bills, all those little things, yeah.
In addition to that, as an adult, there's like an unspoken expectation that you're going to be generous, that you're going to make it a great holiday for everybody else, that you're going to have this Hollywood perfect holiday season.
Let's talk. Yeah, that's a good point, right? That idea of the expectation of generosity, not only in like giving gifts, but time, right? Pretending that going and being excited, no matter what's on your mind, no matter what's happening in your life, right? Showing up, being excited, taking the perfect family portrait. Everybody wants that. You're right. Everybody wants that holiday, Thanksgiving, the holiday, Christmas, where everybody comes, sits around, they have a great conversation. And the reality is never that, right? Half of the people are drunk. There's political talk. As soon as that starts, there's arguments. It's like,
one of my favorite movies is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's just like so typical. How his brother's just camping in an RV in the front yard.
Well, it's more accurate, right? I mean, everything is overblown and, and like exaggerated, but it is more accurate, right? I mean, the family doesn't necessarily get along, but they're there to see each other. Everybody's making jokes or making fun of each other. It's, it's toxic in a way.
Yeah. Like, I know in my family, there's an expectation that everything's supposed to be perfect. And a few years ago, once I really started realizing that I can't follow someone else's ideal for my life, I started realizing that it's not supposed to be perfect, and actually it's supposed to be really messed up.
Yeah, I mean,
I grew up in like a perfectionist family. Like, we were rewarded for getting A's on our report cards, and it was pretty much expected that we got A's on our report cards.
Same there. Yeah.
And everything, and we were supposed to do stuff but also be the best at it. Like, it wasn't okay to just do something and enjoy it. You always had to strive to be the best. And then as this family, like, everything was supposed to be perfect. Or if it wasn't perfect, you just didn't talk about it, you didn't acknowledge it. Because
you ignore it, right?
Everybody's supposed to love each other. Sunshine and rainbows are supposed to shoot out of our assholes 24/7. And if not, then something's wrong. But I came to realize as an adult that, like, stuff is supposed to be messed up. Like, we're not the same people. Sure, we grew up in the same household and we're a family, but, like, it's normal for families not to get along. It's normal for families to fight. It's normal for families to have disagreements.
It is. And it's funny too. I think, like, even like on the parents' side, right? They always, like, I remember my parents trying to make these perfect holiday moments when we were younger. And, like, as kids, you don't notice it. But looking back, I know they were stressed. I know they had problems what they were doing with, things fell apart or whatever. And they still tried to make it seem a certain way, right? And actually, it's funny you mentioned that. That's one of the reasons why I stopped going to my family get-togethers, was that this, like, it felt to me too fake. Like, this expectation for things to be ignored You know, like this was a time not to talk about things, but to ignore them, to push them under the rug, to pretend like everything's fine, pretend like everybody's happy, everything gets along, and like the reality is that's not true.
Like I understand why my grandfather was always drunk at every family event.
You
like
get through it.
I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting through it, right? You're getting through this farcical play. It's like very weird.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part is, I think, you know, I think people, this desire for this perfect Thanksgiving, this perfect Christmas, I think it actually pulls people apart and makes them less connected. It's a shame, but it does. You know, because you end up getting in fights over things that don't matter. You end up ignoring things that do matter. And you end up kind of losing it. I mean, look at us, right? We don't even want to participate in these things anymore because it's so off-putting.
Yeah.
It's so, you know, fake and, you know, almost comical.
I would say, you know, instead of having that goal for Thanksgiving, like what if your goal could be to have the most messed up Thanksgiving? and the reason that I bring this up is, you know, I used to travel a lot, and a couple years ago I was in Bulgaria with a friend, Spiro, and we would just go around. These girls in Bulgaria were beautiful, and we would just go around and talk with these girls in Bulgaria. And he got
Makes sense.
Yeah, and he got down on himself after like a couple rejections from girls about how like, oh, it's just terrible, nothing's working for me today. And I realized that it was because he had this expectation that they were supposed to respond positively to him.
Which why would they necessarily do that?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of reframed it for him. I was like, dude, stop trying to get a girl's number. Just let's have the goal for today to be rejected by 20 girls. And literally as soon as he reframed that and changed it for himself, he was just having so much success with the girls because he was just he was literally trying to get them to reject him, and they wouldn't.
Well, you know it's funny too. I think when you reframe it that way and you kind of you change your attitude, you change the situation. You don't change the actual situation, but you change it, right? By changing your attitude. Something changes in you though, because when you're thinking about it, and staying on that example, right? He's trying to get these girls' numbers. He's thinking probably of himself in the wrong way, trying to present a caricature of himself, an idea of
almost
himself.
Almost coming along as a beggar.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Like, please affirm me that I'm good enough.
Yeah, or trying to be like this like idea of a guy that he thinks would get girls. When instead, when you reframe it the way you said, right, he's probably more himself. Comes off as more authentic, more who he is,
and
that's a lot
fun.
better. Yeah, exactly. And just enjoy. People respond to that. People respond to positivity. They respond to like just enjoying life, right?
So how can we port that to the holidays?
Okay, so I was thinking about this actually earlier. You know, and I guess we'll have to talk about COVID now and this new normal that we're in. But you know, so the CDC, you're well aware, right? The CDC's recently released recommendations that we shouldn't travel for the holidays. We should stay at home and we should celebrate with the people we live with. And just so everybody's aware, right?
The people that we're already fed up with.
The people that you're already sick of seeing every day. But just so you're aware, right? In the last week, there's been over 1 million new confirmed cases in the U.S. That is a roughly like 9.8% of total cases. I think there's over 12 million cases now, roughly.
And just so you're all aware, even though the cases have gone up, the death rate has not gone up.
Well, actually, just the month of November already accounts for 9% of total deaths.
What?
The deaths have gone up a bit because hospitals are getting overwhelmed in other states, not necessarily in New Jersey, but in other states. And that's one of the problems. But anyway, that aside. So we know, and they have all these recommendations of what to do, you know, if you're traveling and all, but they're really recommending that you don't travel. And I was thinking about this a lot. And for me personally, like, I don't want to go travel for Thanksgiving, right? And I was thinking, you know, well, what's the best way to celebrate then? You know, look, you have Zoom, you have ways to communicate with people, but why not try to just enjoy time with the people you live with who you're probably sick of? Why not try to actually be present with them for a day when you probably honestly haven't been? Because I was thinking about that a lot. You know, we've been stuck inside with these people. You know, whoever you live with, you've been stuck with for months now. And it does get repetitive, difficult, because no one's leaving for work, no one's leaving for school. And I was really thinking, like, you know, that would be a good challenge this year is these are the people I'm most comfortable with. I live with them. So I'm not worried about anything like arguments and stuff because we can do that. We do it anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know what I mean? And I'm saying, like, it's like, you know, we're not trying to be perfect, right? So why not try and just enjoy that day really with them without the perfection, without that added? Know that it won't be perfect. This is not the normal holiday. And actually just enjoy it.
Yeah, be present. You know, it's we always talk about when people say, but are you happy or how are you doing?
Mhm.
And it's like, well, I was until you mentioned it. And it's like when we're actually present, that's when things are the best. Like when we're actually there and actually present, like you're saying, actually being present with the people you live with. That is the best opportunity to have one of these Hollywood Thanksgivings
Yeah.
or Hollywood Christmases. Like if you're actually present there and you're not trying to do anything other than just be there, that's the best opportunity you'll ever have to have one of these perfect.
And the funny thing is since it's the people you live with, you see them all the time, you're already more comfortable with them anyway. You're not going to like a family member's house that you're not familiar with. You're not in a situation where you're seeing a lot of relatives, you're surrounded by a lot of people. You know, so it's actually easier too because you kind of know your arguments. You understand your differences, right?
You know how to push their buttons.
Yeah, you know how to push the buttons. You know how to do all that stuff. So it's also easy to be, I mean, I think in a sense that makes it easier, right? The expectations are not so high. There isn't this like Hollywood ideal. You can just have a normal day and actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that would be a great task this year. I mean, that's personally what I thought I was going to try and do and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And also see if you can not push their buttons for a day.
Yeah.
And also see if you can recognize your own buttons and, you know, be forgiving when other people push your buttons.
Not let yourself be pushed. Yeah.
Instead of reacting.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that too. It's a great point, right? You know, I've been trying to do this recently because I noticed myself too, and I think part of this is that, you know, I've been working from home. I'm at home almost all the time. You know, literally seeing you once a week is probably like the most significant outing I take now, other than going for walks by myself and stuff. You know, it's very like isolated, right? And I noticed this happening sometimes, you know, where I was getting like agitated or frustrated or angry and my emotions were showing fairly quickly, which is not normally the case. So I've been trying something now. When I start to feel that way, I try and catch it and I try and just stop for like 30 seconds. Which seems like a long time, and it kind of is when you're counting, but I try and stop for 30 seconds and then sort of like readjust myself because I know that's not who I am. It's the situation, the circumstances really are starting to weigh on me, and you know, it makes sense, right? The stress, the anxiety. And so that pause just for 30 seconds makes a huge difference. And I actually realized it because I had read a study that they did with police officers with implicit bias. And if they force the police officers to stop for 60 seconds before doing something, their implicit bias dropped by like 60%.
And what's implicit bias?
Implicit bias is like, you know, treating an African American different from a white person, right? Because you're biased against them. Or treating a woman different than a man, right? So it's these biases we carry with us that we're unconscious of. But when we just act, they tend to crop up. And emotions are similar, right? You know, if you just act on your emotions, you'll do something that's not necessarily always you. Or, you know, it's coming from a, you know, part of you that, you know, you can control, you can kind of...
Yeah, and you hear people say that all the time, like, I wasn't thinking clearly, or that's not me, or...
Yeah, exactly, right? That's not me. It's like, you know, and even like, I mean, I've had this experience, right? Where you do something and you look back like a few hours later, and the next day, and you're like, why did I do that? Like, right? You know, like, why did I act that way? And I've noticed... And I think that's one of the problems we're all facing right now with this whole thing going on, with cases getting worse. Now we're seeing more stuff shut down. New York just shut down schools again. You know, we're going to be more isolated again, and I think that is weighing on everyone. It really is. I mean, you can see it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very tangible. Very, very tangible. But, you know, I've always... So, like, I've studied Buddhism for a while. And
I love Buddhism.
Yeah, and there's this whole, like... fantasy fairy tale of going off to a cave and reaching enlightenment there. But I've always looked at it as a much more challenging endeavor to actually become enlightened where you are. To actually live in the world and become enlightened. Because I always imagine these monks who go find enlightenment in a cave and then come down to modern civilization and they just lose their mind because they're...
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned that, you know, so Siddhartha, right, the historical Buddha, he sat under the tree after giving everything away for quite a long period of time to meditate. It's interesting. Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the first thing that you're told about Zarathustra is he leaves everything and goes to a cave for 10 years, you know, to find truth, to find himself. And, you know, that idea is interesting because, you know, you're leaving everything. And then, you know, trying to return to kind of like, and you have to like almost relearn society again, right? And I think you're right. It is more challenging to do it in life, to practice these things in life. And you're right, even the monks who just go to a temple with other monks, it's almost like, yeah, you've removed so many of the obstacles and the distractions and the noise just in virtue of going to that place, that it's going to be easier to find enlightenment. Because you just don't have all those other, like, quote unquote worldly problems, right?
Yeah, but I've always been a fan of start with where you are with what you've got. Because that's the best way to do it. And we were talking earlier, so like how to survive the holidays, how to endure the holidays. And this is a very stoic philosophy. Enduring. Patience. Like
Absolutely.
literally, if you just stand there, you will endure it. If you just get through the holidays, you will get through them. We have this whole list. We're talking about all these things to do. Like literally, all you need to do is just endure it. You just need to be there.
It is funny, the amount of which we are actually capable of enduring is insane. And especially like the holidays, right? Because, if you really look at it, like...
Isn't it funny? Like, people have been through concentration camps and everything like that.
Right?
And we're like, how do we spend a day with family and get presents?
And it's funny, right? And it's funny, too, because there's like, if you go online and search it, there's like literally thousands of articles, studies, all this stuff, right? And it's hilarious. It is. Like, we don't have real problems anymore.
Yeah.
But,
The only more searched for things are how to get through unemployment and how to get through a breakup. Like, those are the only bigger topics than how to get through the holidays.
It's so funny. It is. It's interesting. And I think you're right. That is one approach. You can be totally stoic about it. You can just go and endure, which means, enduring. Just don't react to the BS. Don't let your buttons be pushed. Keep it, control those emotions rationally. Keep it inside, essentially.
Or even reacting. Like, I've always admired, like, the grumpy Buddha.
Yeah.
So, like, everybody has this idea, this fantasy that we're supposed to be perfect.
Yeah.
But there was like a grumpy Buddha and an angry Buddha. And it's just like, you can just allow yourself to be however you are. Be compassionate with however you are, because however you are is you, and it's not wrong.
It's interesting. You're right. If you recognize that how you are is okay, that who you are is okay, if you're compassionate and more compassionate with yourself, it is also easier to endure, because you don't have that, that's the biggest difficulty, right? Something happens, say with a family member, a topic comes up, you start to get frustrated, and then there's that immediate internal conflict between two parts of yourself, right? The rational part that sees all these obligations, all these ideas about how you're supposed to be, the ideals of what this day's supposed to be, starts fighting with the other part of you that wants to react, that wants to get angry. And if you just are comfortable with that part of yourself, if you identify it, if you accept it, if you're easier on it, you'll also find it easier not to give into it, right? Because there's not this conflict. You're bringing yourself to a balance. Yeah. And I think that's, we see that with, like, it's interesting, like Plato's conception of, like, justice, right? It's a balanced soul. It's a soul with inner peace where the internal parts aren't conflicting with each other.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And like, you look back to people who are no longer here. Like, I look back to people who have died, and I don't
just generally, or anyone in particular?
I think of like my grandfathers and grandmothers, and I think when I look back at them, I'm not criticizing them for their flaws, for their shortcomings. I look back at them and I'm like, yeah, that's who they were. And I enjoyed that person.
Exactly, right? Like,
yeah. And so it makes me think about my own death. And, people aren't going to look back and when I die and criticize me because, I'm grumpy.
No.
They're going to be like, I like that part of him. He was grumpy, but that's who he was.
It's funny, actually, we had lost the dog recently, right? Mm-hmm. And we mentioned that on the show. And he was a little bulldog, right? And bulldogs have a big personality. They're loud. They can't help being loud. They can't breathe, But it's funny because, afterwards, all those things, like, he used to beg at the table and make this, like, ridiculous noise. He'd be like, like, the whole time you're eating, right? Which is crazy annoying. But when he's gone and that noise is no longer present, like, it's funny how you reflect on it so fondly. Where, like, everyone in the house is like, oh, I miss him. Like, I miss his noises. I miss him yelling at us because it's his bedtime and he wants to go to bed and he wants us off the couch. Like, just demanding that you do these things. But, like, all of a sudden that becomes really fun because those really are the things you also love about them. You know, it's what makes them, right? And I mean, like, you know, look, the fact is, you know, once you have your childhood veil removed and you see the world, no one's perfect. We all have flaws. And, like, I always loved, like, Nietzsche said, like, the idea of giving style to our character was essentially, you know, finding ways to create ourselves where even our weaknesses become beautiful and where they delight the eye. And I always like that because that idea, not that you're losing these parts of yourself because they're a part of who you are, right? Your weaknesses, your strengths, they're both a part of who you are, but that you present them in such a way that they become delightful too because of who you are, right? They're part of you. It's a part of you, and, you know, that's fine.
And that's the way you can create the fairy tale holiday, is because if everybody were perfect, then everybody would be the same, and it would just be like a boring holiday.
Yeah, it'd be terrible.
Yeah. But everyone has their differences, their weaknesses, their strengths, and it's the coming together and actually, like, I think of the TV show Arrested Development.
Oh, such a great show.
Every character in that show had such a strongly defined character. Like, they were so clearly themselves, and it wouldn't have been a dysfunctional family, and it wouldn't have been an entertaining show if they weren't that clearly defined character.
You know, that's a great example too, because, you know, a lot of people, remember when they revamped it on Netflix and they did the individual episodes? It didn't work as well because, like, individually those characters look horrible and they look terrible and they're sad, but together as a group they're hilarious and funny. And I think that's a great example, right, where it's like all these discordant parts, but when you bring them together there is a sort of harmony. And I think that's a great point what you're making, which is, you know, that's probably where you're going to find that ideal Thanksgiving, that ideal Christmas, whatever, right? Not in trying to force some Hollywood, you know, thing onto your family that's not going to fit because the people just aren't those people, and none of those people don't exist because it's a movie, but actually trying to create a great situation where you're present with the people that are there.
Yeah, and embracing your own and everyone else's shortcomings, because that's what makes it something unique.
Yeah, that's what makes you all unique, right? That's what makes you individuals. And I think that's a great point.
And so that's all for the episode today. Thanks for listening.
We're done. No, but that's so true. That's a great point, right? You know, trying to actually be more honest with ourselves, I think, is really it. More honest with ourselves, with our family, and trying to actually, you know, be part of it.
Embracing our embracing our shortcomings, because I think anyone who listens to this and anyone in the whole personal development, self-help realm doesn't embrace their shortcomings. Otherwise they wouldn't be reading about this, listening to this, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd way maybe to say it, but I think it works, right?
Yeah.
Because it's also, I think, embracing your shortcomings is also about, you know, being, like you said, it's about being more kind of not only comfortable with who we are, but honest, and also, you know, charitable with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Being more forgiving of ourselves and recognizing, like, I am this way, and, like, because, you know, first of all, with personal development, with any kind of growth, the step forward is not claiming you know everything. The step forward is not claiming you're perfect, right? The step forward is admitting those faults. It's being honest, because with honesty, you can actually start to recognize and identify what you need to overcome, how you want to develop, the direction you want to go, right? Who you are, what's working, what's not. I mean, it's only when we, like, you know, don't know everything that we seek out knowledge, right? Otherwise, what's the point? You know, if everyone was perfect and the Thanksgiving was perfect, you wouldn't even bother to try, because every dinner would be like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be sort of absurd.
Yeah. So we were looking for some lists of ways to get through the holidays. We found one. So why don't we go through the list? Yeah, 10 tips for surviving the holidays. We'll share this with you down in the show notes in Psychology Today. So obviously, you can know it's a good one. So here are 10 tips to beat the holiday blues.
All right.
Yeah, isn't it funny? It's like a whole season meant to make us feel good, and everybody feels like shit.
You know, it's so funny though. It's like, I mean, we've talked about this so many times, right? And, like, I think Dostoevsky probably said it best when he said consciousness is an illness.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You know, it's like, and he doesn't mean that consciousness is a bad thing. He thinks it's great. The problem is we make it an this, right? Because we, and you see this in Stoicism, existentialism, this idea of changing your attitude, changing your thoughts, and taking control of yourself. And that's where freedom lies, because you're becoming responsible, and you're actually learning that you can dictate how things are, essentially, how they appear to you.
Yeah. And when you said that, it made me think of something, because so consciousness is an illness because the thing that gives us consciousness, by definition, creates and solves problems.
Exactly.
It's like the mind just loves to solve problems, but it also loves to create problems. Like anytime you've been in your life where you don't have a problem, it doesn't last long. If you don't have any problems, the mind will create them. And I think that's why we have a lot of depression and suicide nowadays, because life has gotten so easy that the mind has to create problems. It
contrives, right? Yeah. It's contriving more problems. And it's interesting, like, the way you said that too really works well, right? That it creates them, it contrives them, because, it's funny, like, it will find issues everywhere, right? Because part of our adaptation is adapting our environment, changing the world, right? Identifying what doesn't work, identifying what we're dissatisfied with, identifying what we need to change. So we're kind of always looking for that.
Yeah.
And then you add to that ideals, values, obligations, and it just becomes a mess.
Yeah, the very thing that gives us consciousness creates problems.
Yeah.
Go figure.
It is interesting, right?
Go figure. So, anyways, back to that list. We're great at going off topic.
It's the best. That's what makes it unique. Damn it.
Yep. Welcome to the Going Off Topic podcast.
That's what we should have called it.
Yep. All right. So, number 1, keep your regular routine. They're basically saying that,
we already talked about this. Look at that, because you were mentioning that at the very beginning, right? That you kind of already have a routine.
Oh.
I know that's kind of taking it more extreme than what they're probably saying.
Yeah. I would say what I think of when it comes to this is like, if you go to the gym every day, don't stop going to the gym just because you've got to meet up with family.
Yeah, no, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people do struggle with, right? Because you have these get-togethers that you're going to and stuff, and I actually think that's why this year might be good for people, because they don't have that burden, right?
Yeah, there are no gyms open. So
there you go, right?
They don't have to break their normal routine.
But I mean, like, those obligations too, right? Where you feel like you need to change your whole day because of the holiday, and I think that's probably a problematic way of thinking, because then you're trying to buy into this idea that it has to be perfect. And keep your routine, because you'll feel better when you do that. It's still your day, right?
Yeah, it's like no different than an ordinary day, only it has some added benefits to it. The next one is think moderation, and I think this is a big one for Thanksgiving, without a doubt, because everybody goes into Thanksgiving like, oh man, I'm gonna have to loosen my belt. I'm gonna gorge myself, and then I'm gonna pass out, watching
overeat
football.
And drink until I black out.
Yeah.
Basically, right? That's also, I think, a good one for Christmas, though, right? Because a lot of people struggle with Christmas with the stress of spending. And I think, making a budget for Christmas, knowing how much you want to spend, making that budget like now, before you even buy presents, is a great idea, because it's a way to ensure that you don't overextend yourself, that stress, and like you said, you make a budget now, and you feel freer. Right? Because you know what you're spending. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I always laugh at the people who are out shopping like last minute on Christmas trying to get gifts. And like, I listen to these conversations because I just go out for fun. Like, my Christmas shopping is done long time ago. But like, I just go out for fun because it's just like entertaining to listen to these people. They're shopping and they're like, oh, but what about this person? But what about this person? And what about this? Oh, we forgot about this person. And it's like, they're buying gifts for people they may even see once a year. And it's just like, why?
But that's a great point, though, right? Because if you wait and you have no plan, that's what's going to happen. You're in the moment, you panic, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you'll wake up the day after Christmas and realize your credit cards are maxed. But if you go in with a plan and you know how much you're going to spend, you know who you're buying for, all that stress is gone. You don't have to worry about it.
Yep.
And I think people too, they get caught up in this idea, and moderation's a great one here again, both with Thanksgiving and with Christmas. This idea that we have to put all in, right? Whether it's eating and drinking or whether it's buying stuff. And it kind of ruins it, I think. That stress ruins the rest of the day. It ruins your ability to be present, to kind of enjoy things. So yeah.
It's definitely this whole consumerist culture. Because you have to look at who it's benefiting for you to spend all your money and to eat all this stuff. It's not you.
No.
No, not at all. And it's not your family or your loved ones.
It's Jeff Bezos, it's the Walmart family, it's
Yep.
those people that are benefiting, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, it's funny, but that's why they want it, I saw Walmart's been advertising a ton now, right? Black Friday, we're going to extend it over days, and whatever. And it's like, of course you are, because you all...
thank goodness they did that for me.
Thank you. We don't have to trample each other. Now you're going to,
Yeah.
it's like, it's ridiculous. But it is. The stores are desperate. We know that. These big chains and stuff are desperate, a lot of them, and they'll do everything in their power to get you to spend as much as possible.
Yeah. So the next one is be realistic and try not to expect the ideal holiday.
Right?
We spoke about this already.
I think we're good on that.
We're good on that one. Next one is stay connected. So they basically said make sure you stay on Instagram and Facebook and post all night long. I didn't say that.
No, I hope not, right?
No. It's make sure to leave time to spend with friends and family who value you. And if they don't live close by, call them for a reality check or some grounding. Remember to ask for support if you need it.
That's a great one, I think. Yeah, like actually being in communication with those you really love, right? Making that connection. What's funny? On my way here, I was listening to the radio, NPR, and they were talking about a study that found that talking on the phone is the best way to communicate for building strong relationships. No shit. That talking is better than Facebook, Instagram, text messaging. It's like, no kidding it is. You have a real conversation with a person. And in person talking is even better.
Yeah. There's like study after study that shows that the more people use the modern social media like Facebook and stuff like that, the more depressed they are.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because even the interviewers on that show, they were saying oh yeah, when I have to call somebody now, I apologize, I feel bad, I'm nervous about making a call, and it's like, what is happening to us that we're losing all of our interpersonal skills, all of our communication skills? Like, it's nuts. It really is.
Yeah. People, because texting, it's easier, and
yeah, it's funny. It's like you and me, I think, are a good example, right? We've spent how many years in our lives where we were far apart, because we didn't live in the same area at all, sometimes not the same country.
Probably like 18 years.
Yeah, probably, and we've been friends forever. But we would every month, maybe 2 months, we would talk on the phone for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that does so much, that one conversation is so much more valuable than texting every day.
Yeah.
It really is, because it's an actual conversation.
Without a doubt. Yeah, it makes a big difference. So
I just wanted to pat us on the back.
Yeah, good job, Danny.
Thank you.
Next one is throw guilt out the window.
Huh.
Yeah, I think there's so much guilt around the holidays. Like, people are guilty that they didn't find the ideal present, that they didn't spend enough time with people, that maybe they're not, if you're meeting with old people, that maybe you're not as successful in life as you should be, or that you're not the ideal child, or that you're not a good enough parent, or all this guilt.
That's a great one, right? That, you're meeting friends and you're afraid that you're not. That's a really good example, right? Or that you're not the best kid. I think that's a good point. There's guilt we place on ourselves, and then also the guilt others place on us because of it, whether it's implied or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think, checking our guilt is important, because are we doing that to other people? Are we trying to give them a guilt trip? Are we trying to kind of make them feel bad for something? That's not the right way to do it,
Oh wait, you're telling me I have to change myself?
What? I want them to do it, not me.
Yeah, right? Thought it was everyone else's fault.
Well, they're always wrong. I'm not.
Yeah, but taking a look and, because the guilt puts an enormous amount of pressure on you to get everything right. And just I think it goes back to what we were saying about just embracing the bad parts of everything.
Embracing it, and recognize
flaws,
that it's part of life, right? Life is good and bad. It's creation and destruction. It's, I always admire that about Heraclitus. I admired it about Nietzsche, about Buddhism, right? This idea of, that life is always all these things. It's not always just good or ideal or whatever. It's going to be all the mess and all the good stuff. That's life. It's change. It's becoming. It's the ebb and flow. It's dynamic, right? It's not perfect.
Yeah.
And if you expect perfection, I hate to tell you, but you're not going to get it.
Yeah. And also how we feel like we are so important. I as a person is so important. And I keep going back to this exercise that I do where I just sit in a cemetery and I look at all these people who are gone. And they probably felt the same thing, that they are so important, and yet the world goes on without them. And then I look at myself and I'm like, I think that I'm so important, and yet within 100 years, I'm going to be gone and the world will go on without me.
See, I know the world will stop when I die, but that is the difference.
Clearly.
But yeah, no, I think that's a great point. It's a good exercise too, right? Just being mindful of that. That like, you know, look, like obviously you think the world's important because you're the subject experiencing the world, right? So it's your world in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes sense. And in a way, the world does end from your perspective when you end, but the rest of the world goes on. It always does. Mm-hmm. And no matter what happens to you in a day, the world goes on. Life keeps moving.
Yeah. Yeah, so next one is don't be alone if you don't want to be. So like a lot of people, especially nowadays, like a lot of young adults and even older adults live by themselves.
They do. Yeah.
Probably more than in past generations.
Yeah, I think they do. And I think, you know, well, they absolutely, in past generations, yeah. A lot of people live alone now. And on top of that, too, I think even people that live together, I see it, you know, in my household right now, you know, because everybody's been together so much, they tend to go to separate rooms to kind of have their own time, but that can extend into like an area where you don't even see them all day. And so, you know, seeking out those interactions is good. And remember that you can always video chat, right? You can always pick up a phone. I mean, and video chat's great because I think it makes that conversation even better because you see the person, you see their reactions, and it's nice. You know, it feels more connected.
Yeah. And this talks about, you know, if you're alone, try to volunteer somewhere like in soup kitchens or children in group homes or with
that's
elderly.
a great idea.
Now this year it may not be as possible, but you know, one thing that I do is I love to watch people. Like that's one of my great hobbies. And so for me, not being alone is just going to public places where people will meet, even outside. Like I went to this mall complex that has a giant tree, but it's outside, and I was just watching people interact and move around and doing like that, because that way I wasn't alone completely.
Yeah, you're about.
But I was still safe in these trying times.
You are, yeah, I know, right? You're watching your safety. No, I think that's a great example. You can go to there's plenty of parks where lots of people do congregate. You can, you know, sit, relax, and you'll be around people. You know, you can even interact with them at a safe distance, and you'll be fine. Another good idea too is, you know, like if you are alone and you want to, you know, call somebody you haven't spoken to in a while, an old friend, you know, a grandparent, a family member, you know, that you haven't talked to in a while. Zoom them. I mean, that's a great way too to connect. You know, reach out. Yeah. Make the effort, I think, and you won't. If you make an effort, I guess the point is you won't be alone, right?
Yeah. And then conversely with this one is be alone if you want to be.
Yeah.
Like with the holidays, there's so much pressure to be around other people, and I know me personally, like I find restorative benefits from being alone. I'm very much a loner.
Yeah.
Like I know I need to be around people sometimes, but I know that like I need to be alone in order to rejuvenate. So if you find that that's you, take that time.
Yeah, that's important. You know, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because the other day I was out and I was at a shop and there's people and all, and like after a few hours I realized like I didn't want to do it anymore. Like I just didn't want to be on. And it wasn't that I liked all the people and all. That wasn't the problem. It's just I needed my time too. And I think it's a great point, right? Because you know there is this pressure on the holidays to like get there at 2 and interact till 8 or whatever, right? And that you're all going to spend time together and no one's going to leave till everyone leaves and blah blah blah. And you can take a walk. Yeah. You can go sit outside by yourself. You can take those minutes or that half hour to kind of restore yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, now the next one, we spoke about this a bit earlier. Focus on today, not on yesterday or tomorrow.
Being present, yeah.
Being present. And that'll give you the fairy tale holiday. Like, be present. And focus on all the drama that's going on.
Yeah.
And enjoy it and realize that's part of the holiday. The drama is part. I mean, look at National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
The drama is part of the holiday.
It's what makes that movie great.
Look at Home Alone. The drama is part of the holiday. Like,
yeah,
had she have not forgotten Kevin, and had there have not been criminals and all these bad things, it wouldn't have been a holiday.
There wouldn't have been a plot.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny too because you said it before. You're right. That's what makes you unique. Your family unique. You unique as an individual, right? All these things that make us different are oftentimes problems and oftentimes things we're working on, but that's what makes us unique. It's what makes the family unique. So embrace it for a day.
Yeah. Yeah. Next one is just say no. It's okay to say no when you're asked to do more than you can.
I think this is good too because we kind of already mentioned this. Like, you know, it's okay to say no to attending something if you don't want to. And especially now too, because I know some people are still holding events and people are nervous. If you're nervous and it makes you uncomfortable, say no.
Yeah.
Don't feel obligated to do something you don't want to. I think that's important. And that's important anyway if you're trying to live an authentic life, is learning to say no.
This is like a huge Taoist thing.
Yeah.
Where we have the opposing forces, the yin and the yang, because yes actually loses its value and its importance if you can't say no.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But then when you can say no, a yes becomes so much more valuable because that's an actual yes as opposed to just, okay.
Yeah, think about it, right? If you're always doing something because you feel like you have to, you're just conforming. You're not making a choice. You're not standing behind it, right? And just like you said, it's a great example. If you actually start using your yes and no effectively, they become powerful because it's your freedom. It's your actual choice, not just, what you think you have to do.
And it's your chosen life, what we've spoken about numerous times. How to really choose the life you want, because it's a yes and no that you've chosen.
It is, and that's how you take responsibility and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Next one is ask for help. So the holidays are a time when everyone tries to take on too much. They don't know how to ask for help.
I thought they meant that a different way. Yeah, that's a good one too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, asking for help, and I think asking for help broadly, right? If you feel alone and you need someone to talk to, reaching out, right? That's a way of asking for help.
BetterHelp is a great app for people who need a counselor. And there's so much stigma around all this stuff. Like, I find like there's so many problems nowadays are just because of the stigma associated with it.
Oh God, like everything, every problem.
Yeah, and it's just like, if there wasn't this stigma around reaching out for help and about, taking medications for mental health, imagine how much better the world could be.
Yeah, right? And it's funny, it's like, on the one hand, there's this stigma. On the other hand, I hear people talk about like a badge of honor that just like to give it lip service.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's such signaling. A weird, it's such a weird
social
thing.
Media signaling.
I can't stand that. But in all honesty, asking for help is great. And even with dealing with family and stuff, if you need that time to go take a walk, ask for help, right? Say, look, I need to take a minute. I'll be back, whatever,
And like, also thinking about it in, how awesome does it feel when somebody asks you to help them with something?
Yeah.
Especially something that you can do. You're like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's so awesome. But how often do we actually ask other people to help us?
Yeah, it's true, right? And when we do ask for it, when somebody does ask us, it does feel great, right? Because you're using your skills, your abilities to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And we've already talked about this, right? That's what we do. We create problems and we solve them.
Yeah.
And it feels great when we solve them. So ask for that help. You'll make somebody happy. And you actually bring them into your life, right? You bring them into your problem solving.
Yep. And so the last one is be good to yourself.
So important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't do this often enough. Man, do we fail ourselves so often in this respect.
Yep. Yeah, I think that I'm like my own worst critic.
Oh God.
And then out of all the people I know, I'm probably the worst to myself than anyone else.
Oh, I am.
I blame it on Wilt Chamberlain, actually. I heard this quote when I was young that someone was asking like Wilt Chamberlain how he got so good, and he said that he's tougher on himself than anybody else could possibly be. And so I figured that would be a good strategy for myself, for me to be tougher on myself than anyone else could possibly be. And because of that, I've just been like a slave driver for myself, just like a masochist.
Do you know what's funny? I'm the same way. I'm very hard on myself, especially with like my perfectionism and stuff, and making sure things are perfect and all, which it doesn't help. You don't get things accomplished, right? And it's funny, you see this in Stoicism a lot, this idea of this self-mastery and this idea of being hard on yourself, severe with yourself. And, there's various ways to interpret that. I think it's sometimes misinterpreted as that kind of idea of being like this slave driver with yourself, right? Really strict, demanding. And I think there is value in that sometimes when you're trying to make changes in your life. But I think it's also being hard on yourself instead of being honest with yourself. Being true to yourself, like identifying things, admitted to them so you can move on from them, so you can take control, so you can be patient, whatever, right? And it's not necessarily this like, whipping yourself into shape kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's kind of a learned behavior. And here's how I look at it, how I've been looking at it recently, I should say. So I look at goals that I have in my life. And pretty much most goals that I've had from the past, I've accomplished.
Yeah.
There's a pretty good chance that if I put my mind to something and I really work towards it, I'm going to get it.
Oh, absolutely,
pretty darn good chance. And so I now realize that any goals that I have now, given a long enough time frame, I can accomplish them. So during that accomplishment of the goal, is it in my benefit to whip myself like a slave driver, or to just be compassionate and patient with myself? And which of those would I prefer the journey to be? Because the journey is going to take however long it's going to take anyways.
Yeah, it is.
So
That's a good
would
point.
I prefer to beat myself up for those years, or to just be patient and kind and understanding with myself?
And it'll be a lot more enjoyable and beneficial, right? You'll learn a lot more if you're patient with yourself, because you'll understand where you have difficulties a lot more and be able to overcome them and learn from them, right?
Yeah.
It'll be a better experience. And it's such a good point. It's funny, like when you're young you don't see it, but as you get older you realize it's so true. Like we can do anything. You can literally accomplish anything given yourself enough time. But it's those, we talked about this so many times, right? It's the expectations and stuff that always get in the way.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great one. Being good to yourself. We talked about this earlier too, right? Just being nicer to yourself. And I think all of these will lead to a successful holiday. Mm-hmm. However you decide to celebrate the holidays this year, whatever they look like. The other thing to remember too is, I know I keep seeing stuff online. I keep hearing people say, it's the new normal. It's uncertainty, blah, blah, these trying times. We can't celebrate the holidays, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to say to people too, there will be more. There will be other holidays. So, one way to look at it is, this is an oddity. Take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Because it will go back to normal eventually.
Yeah, this is limited edition.
Yeah, exactly. This is the limited edition crappy 2020. This is the limited edition that they put an extra cardboard sleeve around it.
That's a really good perspective to look at.
Right?
I mean, you're only going to get this once in a lifetime.
I've been thinking about that a lot. I was like, man, we're not going to get another pandemic that doesn't kill everyone.
Right.
It's like, so you might as well take advantage of it and recognize that, look, probably next year things will be pretty much back to normal. So take advantage of this year, do something different, and try something new. And I think you'll find a huge benefit in doing that.
That's a great way to end it. Boom, limited edition 2020.
Damn, right?
Right?
Yeah, I think it's good. All right.
Cool. All right. Well, anything else you want to say, Danny?
No, I guess, please like us, follow, subscribe, whatever. And great talking to you as always, Randy.
Yeah, same, Danny.
All
I'll
right.
catch you next week.
Absolutely.
All right, peace.
Later.